Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, or How to Train Your Dragon 3, as some people are going to call it, is the third and final installment of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. This is the conclusion of a trilogy. This film is written and directed by David DeBloy, I think is his name, and it brings back a lot of the voice talent from the other films. You've got Jay Baruchel, you've got America Ferrera, Kate Blanchett, Craig Ferguson, as well as S. Murray Abraham, who is in this movie playing the villain. Like I said, this is the conclusion of the trilogy. This brings all the storylines from the previous films and the TV show that they created off of these films to a complete close. This film takes place a little bit over a year after the events of How to Train Your Dragon 2. Hiccup is enjoying the perks and the ups and downs of being the chief or being the king of the Vikings. Him and Astrid are still together. They're set to be married. Life is pretty good. They're rescuing dragons still. Them rescuing so many dragons creates a target on their backs, and then because they become a target, there's this new villain that emerges, played by S. Murray Abraham. His name is Grimmel, and he hates dragons, and he's after all the dragons because, you know, he's the villain of the movie. Hiccup has to make a lot of big decisions that will determine the future of both the Vikings and the dragons in this world, and at the same time, while they're doing all this on their journeys, they come across another Night Fury. This one isn't really a Night Fury, it's colored white, so I guess it's more of a Light Fury or a White Fury or something like that, but either way, you know, Toothless sees some ass, he goes for it, he's excited, he's falling in love, and so you have a love story that's also woven in here. Hey guys, I'm actually a really big fan of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. I love these movies, I love the previous two films in this franchise. I dabbled a little bit in the show. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched enough of it to understand its context and how it fits into the bigger universe that the movies have created. I gotta say, I was actually pretty excited for this one. I wanted to see how they would close this trilogy out, because this is it. There are not going to be any more How to Train Your Dragon movies after this. At least I don't think they're going to be. I was cautiously optimistic because sometimes the third movie in a trilogy can either make or break you. I mean, sometimes you're going to get some really great entries. Born Ultimatum, War for the Planet of the Apes, obviously Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, just to name a few off the top of my head. At the same time, generally speaking, I agree with Jean Grey from X-Men Apocalypse when she walked out of the theater and she was like, well, generally speaking, the third one is usually the most disappointing one. I love these characters, and I love this world, and I love this franchise, and I wanted it to go out with a bang. And yes, luckily, I'm here to tell you that it did go out with a bang. Maybe not like a literal bang, but like an emotional, satisfying bang, you know, kind of like a bang. You gotta once again praise the animation in this movie. It is gorgeous, it is vibrant, it is extremely well rendered. Really, the animation for all the other movies are really, really good, and in this day and age, we have set new standards for animation in terms of how gorgeous and how beautiful it can look. The animation in this film is no exception. It's very lush, it's very lifelike, it's eggs on a tit. It's eggs on the tit in every sense of the word. I love the way this movie looks, and I love the way that the visuals really lend to the world that these movies have created. Every single dragon, every single costume, every single mountaintop, every single thing that is put into this movie looks like it was created to be the most beautiful and gorgeous looking thing that it was created to be. You don't just go to How to Train Your Dragon for the visuals, you go for the great characters, and yes, all the great characters from the previous movies, other than Hiccup's father, rest in peace. Spoilers for the second one if you haven't seen it. I was gonna make some jokes for this video because obviously the main character's name is Hiccup. I decided I'm going to be the mature one. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I will talk about Hiccup and how great he is in this movie, because this movie really does bring his arc to a full close. It ties things back into the first movie in a way. There's some very powerful flashbacks that really do a great job at exploring the deeper parts of Hiccup's character, as well as fleshing some things out for the story. If you think about it, this is the first time that Hiccup is in a position of power. He's in a position of authority. He has to make the decisions for the Vikings and the dragons. He has to make decisions that could determine whether they live or die. Sometimes it's not easy to be the leader. You're going to have to make some tough choices. You're going to have to make some tough calls. You're not going to have all the answers. Hiccup spends quite a bit of this movie failing in a lot of those aspects. It's also great to see the level of strength that he's able to draw from to become a better leader. And it's not just strength from himself, it's strength from the other characters. Like I said, him and Astrid are really great together. They're a great couple, and she's able to give him that extra strength. Astrid is the ride or die that every man in this world should be wanting. All the other characters are back, and they're hilarious. They all have their moments to shine. Rough Nut, Tough Nut in particular are really funny in this movie. Obviously, Hiccup's mom's really great in this movie. Kate Blanchett, I mean, you can't go wrong with Kate Blanchett. Come on. The way that it actually closes the trilogy out, it ended on such an emotionally satisfying level. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I was sitting in the theater and I was getting in my feels. I was really invested in the world that they've created with these movies, and I was really sad to see it come to an end, so to speak. I don't know that they could have done it a better way. It just makes perfect sense for the story that they're telling. It makes perfect sense for the characters that fill these movies out. If I had to single out a singular flaw, though, there is a glaring one with this movie, and that is the villain, who I didn't talk about in the positives for good reason. The villain in this movie is, you know, he's just a waste of space. He's just kind of the generic, I'm evil dragon guy because I'm evil dragon guy. I understand that this movie needs a conflict. It needs an antagonist to kind of bring everything to a head and introduce some stakes. And this one is just kind of like, nope, I hate dragons, and That's what the script says, so you're just going to have to deal with it. It brought all the characters that I have been in love with over these years since this franchise started. It brought them all to a place that felt very emotionally satisfying for me as a fan. And I think most How to Train Your Dragon fans are going to walk away from this movie really enjoying the way they close things out. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World was a perfect send-off for this trilogy, and it's going to get Superman Prime, the highest my channel can offer. Those are my thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon 3. Tell me, did you see it this past weekend? Tell me what your thoughts on How to Train Your Dragon 3 are. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel. Stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace!